Welcome to the MassLive offices, where we're still going through the explosion of excitement that is the Gordon Hayward signing, and also the tidal wave of rumors, which as of this morning or late last night has included rumblings of a sign and trade with the Utah Jazz over Jae Crowder. And here to explain about what that means for the Celtics and why that really doesn't make any sense for the Boston Celtics, Tom Westerholm.
Hey, Nick.
Hey.
So let's first start out by laying out the deal. Okay, so the thing that's being reported is that Crowder would be included in a sign and trade for Hayward as part of some weird thing. Obviously, the Celtics, everybody's reported this, everybody's very correct about this. They're probably going to have to get rid of either Crowder, Bradley, or Smart to make room to sign Hayward to a max deal. That's kind of inevitable at this point. The thing that's being reported, mostly from Utah, but it's gotten some national looks, and it's gotten, I think, a Boston writer or two, a Boston reporter or two, is that there's the potential that the Celtics could trade Crowder as part of a sign-and-trade to the Jazz for Gordon Hayward. And it's just kind of a ridiculous idea. It just doesn't make any sense, because here's the thing. Hayward is signing with the Celtics. This is not a trade. This is not like a negotiation. It was a negotiation when he was a free agent. Now he's made his decision. Now he's going to sign with the Celtics. And Crowder is a member of the Celtics. He's a very valuable player. The Celtics would like to play him in small ball lineups that include Hayward. So there's really no reason for them to just throw him into a deal to get rid of him. I mean, it makes more sense in any way to trade Bradley or Smart. Those guys are both going to be up for new deals next year. Bradley's unrestricted, Smart's restricted. And those guys just like, they're going to cost more, they're going to tie up more cap space. Those would be the guys that they might throw away, but even there, they both have a lot of value. So it's just a really weird report. A couple of the Jazz writers had, I've got one here, and this is pretty emblematic of what a lot of different guys were reporting, which makes you think that somebody was actually sourcing these reports. Hayward could use his leverage to make a sign and trade happen like Chris Paul did for the Clippers. He owes it to Utah after Tuesday. That's just a weird way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
I feel like. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Because we were talking about this earlier, Gordon Hayward has a leverage, but why would Gordon Hayward use the leverage to make his new team worse?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And that's, people say he owes it to Utah. Well, the thing that he owes to Utah maybe would be like an apology. He doesn't owe them a starter on an Eastern Conference finalist. That's not how this works. Like he botched his announcement. I think everybody can agree on that. I think, Celtics, Utah, everybody can agree on that. Once it was leaked that he was going to the Celtics, if he was planning to go to the Celtics, he should have just announced. It should have just been, here's the Players Tribune piece. That would have been the smoother way to do this. Everybody in Utah still would have been mad, but they would have been, okay, like, we lost a free agent mad, as opposed to, we got so screwed mad. But he doesn't owe Utah anything. He signed in Boston. He's allowed to do that. I don't understand this report. I don't understand the idea that he would just intentionally make the Celtics worse as a way to like make amends or as a way to do a solid for his buddies in Utah. That's just not free agency.
There is the idea, the fact that the Celtics have to shed some salary, but it's weird to think that if the Celtics are going to lose someone, they're just like, Jae Crowder.
Jae Crowder, who's signed through 2020 on one of the best deals in the NBA. I mean, that's the thing. Crowder's super valuable. Of all the guys, he's one of the ones they would definitely want to hang on to because his presence on the team and his talent level and his contract opens up options. I mean, like, if you sign Avery Bradley next season, he's going to get huge offers. Marcus Smart might get huge offers in restricted free agency, and so if you, then you'd be like locked into matching on those. And I mean, the Nets might be a team that they like to throw around these offer sheets that would, that really increase the price on these guys, and they would definitely be willing to do that to the Celtics. They would love to mess with the Celtics in some way. But Crowder's contract is incredibly valuable. Every team in the league could use a player like Crowder, especially on a deal like that. They're not going to just give him away. And that's not to say that a sign and trade with the Jazz isn't going to happen. That could happen. There are ways to make this all work. But it's going to require something. And that's what I think is getting lost in this, is that it wouldn't be a trade like that is just like straight up Hayward for Crowder. That would make no sense. Does that sound anything like the Danny Ainge that we know, who loves his assets and loves and is very just hesitant to part with anything. He doesn't work that way.
Yeah, because Jae Crowder, because it would basically just be a salary dump of Jae Crowder, and it's like you don't salary dump a starter,
right? On an Eastern Conference finalist, like he's a really good player. You don't just like let that guy go for nothing. That just doesn't make any sense. I think these leaks are almost unkind to Jazz fans who are already upset about Hayward. The kind of package Utah would have to give up would probably be a first round pick. I mean, maybe it's protected, maybe it's something like that. But I mean, this is a valuable player. This is a guy that that the Celtics really value, that would do really well in Utah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I mean, they're gonna have to pay for him.
Yeah. Are there any other sorts of deals similar in that sort of sign and trade vein that you think the Celtics could make?
I think there's plenty that the Celtics would make. I think the question is, I don't. This is why it's a tough thing. I mean, the Jazz just drafted Donovan Mitchell. He's tearing it up in summer league. The kid looks like he's really, really good. You're about to be rebuilding. You don't just give away Donovan Mitchell to be like a middle of the road Western Conference team. That's a deal the Celtics would probably do. He's on a cheap contract. He fits kind of the Celtics secondary rebuild. But I mean, you could probably maybe include another player and some other salary stuff to make a deal for Derek Favors work, but I mean that's tough too. You really would have to wade into the weeds on a lot of this stuff to figure it out. And I've done a lot of wading. I don't have like the numbers directly in front of me. There's options there, but I don't think there are any options that Utah is going to like. I mean, imagine if the Jazz traded Hayward and then also included a pick, or also included Mitchell, or also included Favors along with it, and they got back Crowder. I mean, they'd be happy to get back Crowder, but I mean the price is just crazy on that.
Yeah, because he was a free agent, but in the end, Utah feels like they lost Gordon Hayward.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and especially if it was a sign and trade like that, like it would feel very different than him just agreeing to terms and then going somewhere else into cap space.
Do you think a part of this has to do with the fact that everyone in the league knows the Celtics have to trade a starter, and so it's a buyer's market in terms of getting someone from the Celtics?
Oh, absolutely, and it's definitely a buyer's market. I mean, teams are not going to be giving up like primary. You would have gotten a much better deal for Avery Bradley at the deadline than you would get right now. That's just the long and the short of it. The Celtics are kind of locked into this time frame. There is a potential sign and trade that was kind of floating around last night that via some cap mechanics that are very nerdy and very in the weeds, the Celtics could clear enough space by getting Guerschon Yabusele to sign or to go back overseas for a year, and then including, I believe it was Rozier and maybe Demetrius Jackson, I think was the other one, in a sign and trade. So it would be Rozier and Jackson to the Jazz in exchange for Hayward, and that's obviously a much smaller haul than Jae Crowder. That would be a haul that would really anger Jazz fans.
Yeah.
Especially now that they think they're getting Crowder. So that, then the Celtics would have Crowder, they would have Smart, they would have Bradley, they would be able to go into the season with those guys and potentially trade either Smart or Bradley, which they would have to do cap-wise eventually, but it would kind of kick that down the road a little bit and give them some extra leverage.
And is losing Terry Rozier worth kicking the can down the road salary-wise?
I think it would be, because you could get a much better deal for Bradley or Smart or Crowder or whatever you end up deciding to do, and I think it would probably be Smart or Bradley just because they're a little more redundant than Crowder.
And they have contracts coming up?
And they both have contracts coming up. So, yeah, I do think that would be worth it. I mean, Rozier's a nice player, but they're already so crowded at that position. I think you keep Rozier around if you're thinking you're going to get rid of both Smart and Bradley. Then it's a completely different conversation. Rozier becomes the backup point guard. But in this particular instance where you're looking at, trying to give up, not giving up Jae Crowder as part of a sign and trade for Gordon Hayward, I think giving up Rozier does make some sense there.
So, there was a report this morning that the Knicks were one of the teams that the Celtics were calling about about Marcus Smart. Are there any? We've heard that the Celtics are trying to get deals going. Have we heard anything in terms of where potential trade partners?
We have. We've heard Oklahoma City gets brought up a lot, although it would be a little bit more difficult now that they signed Patrick Patterson. Obviously, we've heard the Knicks. The Pacers are allegedly interested in some, which really makes no sense. I mean, you could have just waited, don't trade Paul George yet, and then maybe you get one of these guys as part of the deal.
If you waited a couple weeks, you would have had the Celtics in a bind.
A week or two, yeah. But, they're a team that's allegedly interested. There's going to be tons of them. Everybody, saw the Celtics this season. They saw what Smart, Bradley, and Crowder did for this team. they're going to want these guys. These guys are going to be valuable. They're going to have a place in the league that is going to be willing to give up some value for them. And I think everybody knows that. That's why the Celtics are going to get some small amount of value. It's not going to be pennies on the dollar. That's the point. And that's why the Hayward Crowder thing would be pennies on the dollar. It's going to be like, dimes, maybe if they're lucky, a quarter on the dollar. So, that's just the price you pay for getting Gordon Hayward.
Because you got a $5 bill.
Right, exactly. You live with that because actually the deal is they get Hayward, and that's why they have to send this stuff out. And one other thing I wanted to say about Hayward and this reporting, it's very smear campaigny. They're saying, the reports are that Hayward is going to have to demand a sign and trade in order for this to work. And there's really no reason for Hayward to demand the trade because he's making his team worse. So what's being set up here is that Utah is going to look at Hayward and think to themselves, wow, this guy left our team and we all hate him now. But also, this guy wouldn't demand a sign and trade, and he made sure that we didn't get extra value, and he did the anti-Chris Paul thing, even though the Chris Paul thing was to create enough space to actually make it work. So I think it's a little gross. Whoever's leaking this is really making Hayward look bad. And again, Hayward botched the decision, but they're making him look unnecessarily bad, if that makes sense. And
he botched it because someone leaked the news.
Right. Hayward did not call Chris Haynes of ESPN and tell him, I'm signing with Boston, and then pull it back. That's not what happens. So.
Yeah, he did what, the same thing that Durant tried to do, and so many guys tried to do, here's my free agent decision, and someone erected for him, and he's really suffered because of it.
Exactly, and I think, he has been, he really wanted to do things the right way, it seems. It seems like he really wanted to let Utah know, to give them the heads up, to let the fans know in this long, well-written post, and it all got messed up. And from there, I think he and his agent made a bunch of mistakes. But that was his intention, and I think that's kind of getting railroaded.
Yeah, and it's going to be weird if this whole offseason for Gordon Hayward ends up coming down to screwing up 6 hours on the 4th of July, or however long it was between the break and the post coming out.
This is one of my favorite things that Utah is currently leaking, is that they had all these awesome free agent options, that those 6 hours, they just ruined it. They couldn't do anything because of those 6 hours. They couldn't throw a max offer sheet at Otto Porter that would have tied up their entire cap, only to have the Wizards match it anyway. It's so selfish of Hayward to prevent them from throwing way too much money at Otto Porter that the Wizards were going to match anyway. It's just so ridiculous. So many of these reports are just completely ridiculous. I'm frustrated by them because they don't make any sense.
It's so weird because the Jazz made their statements after the Hayward signing. It was very classy statements, but everything else has been really weird and sketchy and
everything public has been super classy. They wished Hayward luck in the future. They thanked him for his contributions. They said they were proud of how he grew up. They said they were happy for him and his family, and they wished him the best. And whoever's leaking this stuff it's not a good look.
Whoever's leaking this wasn't quoted or not make the accurate
Correct.
statement.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think? Noontime today is when it opens up for the Celtics. Do you think the official signing happens soon, or are we going to have to wait a bit for the Celtics to make a move to clear up the space?
It's going to be really interesting for the next few hours. It's so tough to tell at this point. The decisions they have to make are just so difficult right now. And again, it's a good problem to have, but it throws everything off and throws the timing of everything off. We'll really have to wait and see.
All right, so follow Tom and follow Jay King, who's sleeping off in Utah because Summer League goes real late and is 3 hours behind us, but we'll have coverage throughout the week and the weekend and the rest of the offseason, see if the Celtics pull any crazy moves, if Jae Crowder moves, Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart. We'll have it all, and if they do anything weird again, we'll be here to just have our heads blow with steam and just go crazy.
Sure will.
All right, thanks for tuning in, folks.